فورت كولينز التي تأسست كنقطة حدودية للجيش الأمريكي سنة 1864 والواقعة بموازاة قاعدة جبال الروكي تأتي في المركز الرابع بين مدن كولورادو من حيث عدد السكان بما يزيد على 140 ألف شخص. وبكونها مقر جامعة ولاية كولورادو لقبت بأفضل وجهة للعيش فيها سنة 2006. يتمحور الكثير من ثقافة فورت كولينز حول طلبة جامعة ولاية كولورادو ومنهم جيريد.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Jared and I converted to Islam 1 year ago.
من أنزل الأمطار وفجر الأنهار وأنبت الأزهار تزخرف الجبال من ينشر الصباح ويرسل الرياح ويملأ البطاح برزقه الحلال. الله 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 الله.
Before I became a Muslim, I was a Christian. It was, not really a practicing kind, really just kind of a spirituality in the back of my mind. I was really never a ardent Christian, the kind that went to church every day and went to church on Wednesdays, and I celebrated Christmas, I celebrated Easter. Really what I was, I guess, like a non-practicing kind of Christian. I really only knew what I saw in the media. It was really nothing more than just what Fox said to me, what CNN said to me, what all these different media corporations say, this is what Islam is, this is what the Muslims do, this is who the Muslims are. I never bothered to myself speak to Muslims, never bothered to myself read the Qur'an, do any of these type of things that I never got a chance to really do until I came to Fort Collins. The only reason I knew Islam even existed was because Fox News told me that there were people out there to hurt me and they were called Muslims. If you didn't try to put the thought in my mind that a religion existed, I wouldn't have come to it. I was first studying about all world religions in an Eastern religions course. I was learning about Hinduism, I was learning about Sikhism, I was learning about, basically all the religions from the eastern half of the world, except Islam. That was the only thing that wasn't included in the course. Through the help of a young Muslimah in my creative writing course, I got my hands on the copy of the Qur'an, which I still have to this day, and I just read it, and it reminded me a lot of the Old Testament. I was able to arrange a trip to the masjid during Jummah, and I wasn't aware it was Jummah, but I got there, and there was Muslims everywhere. It was hectic. They were trying to prepare food for Jummah, they were trying to get ready for the khutbah, and it was wild, but it was like a homey kind of wild, like everybody knew everybody else. It was a real family type thing. It made me feel a lot more comfortable, especially since I was really nervous. I wanted to know, who were these people? What were they practicing? What did they really believe? The media said they were these monsters. They were these people that wanted to hurt everyone else. They were these people waging holy war on us. And that's the complete opposite of what I found. It was none of that. And I listened to what they believed, I listened to who they were, spoke with them, and it was so convincing. Every word was just so convincing, it changed my life. The main thing that convinced me to become a Muslim was the sincerity of the whole religion. In Christianity, it's not okay to ask questions. If you say, well, what if Jesus wasn't the Son of God? That's looked upon very poorly. But in Islam, if you ask questions like, why does it say this in the Qur'an? Or why does the Prophet Muhammad say that we should do this? Islam is not afraid to answer them. It's not like, oh, Jesus is the Son of God, accept it as truth, and that's it. It's, okay, there is one God, there is only one God, and we know that there is only one God because He has proven it to you in the previous works of previous religions, in works that you see every day, in the Qur'an that you hold dear. Both the sincerity of the people and sincerity of the teaching really convinced me to become a Muslim. As I was becoming a Muslim, as I was gradually, converting, I was honestly too afraid to speak to my parents about it. And it was almost 2 months before I said anything to my family. I mean, it came up and my mom, she was saying something like, they're just a bunch of terrorists. I was like, Mom, I am a Muslim. I am not a terrorist. And I mean, it was just heartbreaking because it really just tore up my whole family. My mom, she practically disowned me. Still to this day, my stepdad doesn't actually think I'm a Muslim.
When I first found out my brother's a Muslim, I found out from my mom before he ever told me. At first she was kind of questioning about it, it's a big change, obviously. I was actually kind of confused because it was something that we had never really talked about before. We had never really discussed the religion in our past history, just, in all of our talks. It's just never been something that's been present in our life. Our town was really small, and so there's no one that was part of the religion. There's no one that really cared to talk about it or had family members. And so the first time I heard, I was just questioning about why specifically was this your choice, And then when I found out it was from a history class, I kind of like that, being a history major myself. We discussed whether it was something that he's serious about or not. Because obviously that's the first thing that I needed to be aware of is whether he is serious about his change. And that's one thing that he's adamant telling me about is that it was, yeah.
It hasn't really affected my relationship with my brother. He seems very understanding. He has accommodated me. He knows that I don't drink alcohol, which I used to. Before I became Muslim, I did drink, and after I became Muslim, I say to him, if I'm coming over, try and keep some soda stocked in the fridge. We hang out, we play board games, we play video games, stuff like that, and there's no need of alcohol. We order a pizza, we get a cheese pizza. I ask them to use a different cutter so that they don't get, any pork or anything on the cheese, but other than that, it hasn't changed. We're brothers, we're as close as we've ever been. Closer because we have more in-depth conversations. I think among my entire family, he has been the linchpin to me just staying with my family, to still talking to them, to still discussing with them, because he has been so accepting. He's been, a brother.
Him coming up here to college, we had started hanging out a bit together, doing a little bit of the, the partying and whatnot a little bit, but becoming a Muslim, the ways you interact with each other change a bit. And so, I wasn't able to do any, drinking type stuff with him. When he turns 21, I won't be able to go to the bar and that type of stuff with him, which it's not, a bad thing. It's just one change that has happened that I've noticed is we have to, when we do hang out, we have to do different activities, I've actually told quite a number of people that my brother's a Muslim, and I've never hid it ever. I've actually, sometimes when he first told me about it, I was pretty proud of the fact. I was like, hey, my brother's doing his own thing. He's doing what makes him happy and what he feels is right.
Even after I've become a Muslim, my family hasn't really noticed the change. And I don't think it's because I'm not acting as a Muslim around them. Even though they badmouth me right to my face, I will just turn the other cheek. And I'll say, Mom, that's not true. Please have some patience and just listen to me. Let me speak for a minute. And even with all this, I think that they're just closing their eyes. Because, like I said, the area I came from is very, very Christian. It's on a straight Christian path. If you aren't Christian, you're incorrect, is basically where I came from. And it's made convincing them a very difficult task.
There was some confusion at first, obviously, that he wasn't the same as my parents as far as religion went. And so there I think my parents were a bit sad that they hadn't lost him, but it was a difference now. And so I think there's a sadness there, but there's never any anger about his change or anything like that. How we all react with Jared is different from person to person. My little sister, how she reacts with Jared is different between them, and how I react with him is different than anyone else does. There's not always the best interactions between my family and him, but a lot of that I feel is just a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding, is that he feels a certain way about things, and then they feel a certain way about things, and it's just them trying to purvey that information is always difficult, because my brother's always been a heavy arguer. He's been the type that you'd rather argue with the fence post than argue with him, because it's just, there's no point. You can try and tell him something, the pencil's a pencil, and he'd argue with you. And so that's been the only problem I've really seen, is that just communications between my parents and him I feel could easily be mended a lot. And he thinks it's all them, they think it's all him, but I really feel like it's small things that are not going to be a long-term problem for them.
I'm not really trying to convert my brother to Islam. He asks questions, and I explain it to him in the best of terms that I can, and without trying to sound pushy. If he converts, alhamdulillah, that's good. I'll be very, very happy for him. I would love to be the conduit that he uses to become a Muslim, if he ever decides to become one, which I do hope he does decide to become one. But I will never say, if you don't become a Muslim, I don't love you. If you don't become a Muslim, you're not my brother, or I'll kill you, or something stupid like this. Like, he is my brother. He will always be my brother. And whether he becomes a Christian, or he becomes a Muslim, or whatever it is he becomes, he's still my brother, and I will always love him.
I probe and question, and I say, hey, if you're in this situation, what happens here? I've asked him about, like, eating pork, as, like, what happens if you accidentally do it? So, small questions like that, like, probe and question about. And the bigger stuff we also talk about, not as much, but, whether it makes you happy, whether you think all this is right, what's wrong. He hasn't tried to make me a Muslim, and I haven't tried to convert him back to being a Christian. We've talked about specific morals. He's talked about drinking, and he's tried to impress upon me that I shouldn't, drink. Mm-hmm. And so there's been that, but it's never been about converting religions. It's just been about, he's got some new moral ideas, and he's talked about them with me. And so I've also talked about, like, how I've always felt about different things. And so there's that. There hasn't been any trying the conversion or whatnot, but there has been discussions on some positive aspects we could share with each other,
While I'm working, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Muslim. I mean, it's caused some controversy with some fellow workers of mine.
He just out and out told me one day. I knew he'd been interested in it for a couple of weeks at least, and he just said, I converted to Islam. And that was about it. He just let me know. I honestly am not that big into any religion, so I don't know too much about any of them. They seem like really nice people, actually. They seem nicer than most Americans. Really respectful, in my opinion. I did ask a couple of questions when he converted, mainly why, just what had got him into it. And that was about it. It's a very personal choice, and I don't judge him for it. I think it's great that he believes in something. That's more than I can say.
Maybe a year ago, I remember him talking about, I think he got into the poetry, and this is when he was, I think, still a Christian, and then he started getting interested in the religion, and I noticed he started reading the Qur'an, and he fell in love with the Qur'an, and he felt deeply connected to the religion, and that's when I knew he converted, and he would talk about it to me, and I loved learning about the new faith that he was getting into.
We were friends, co-workers before he converted, and I knew that he was very interested in it just because it's the one that he said is the best way to get to heaven. I heard it and I was like, whoa, when did that happen? And he's just like, well, I've been looking into it for a couple weeks and it sounds like it's the best choice. So Muslim is where he's at, and it sounds like that's where he plans to stay for the rest of his life.
I know it's a little unorthodox, but I absolutely refuse to sell pork and alcohol. And working in electronics is not as hard to do as one might imagine. If pork and alcohol come through, somebody wants to get, their beer, that wants to get their ham back in electronics because they're all done shopping, they've got a hard drive, they've got pork, they've got bread, they've got eggs. Usually what I do is I just put the rest of the stuff through and I ask for somebody else to finish the transaction for me. I say, I finished everything, can you please come and sell the pork, come and sell the alcohol for me? I'm not going to do it because it's against my religion to purchase it, it's against my religion to sell it, it's against my religion to buy it, it's against my religion to eat it, drink it, consume it. So I don't do it myself. If, I say, hey Alex, hey, hey Anna, hey, come finish this for me. Usually it doesn't spark too many questions. They're just like, okay, whatever, he's not 18 or not 21 or whatever. But there are the odd customers here and there that say, hey, why are you passing it off? And I'll kindly explain to them, well, I am a Muslim, so it is against my religion for me to sell these products to you. Even though I am part of Walmart, I do like to avoid the things that are against my religion at all costs. So these two things are among them, so I will try and push it off onto somebody else who can sell them to you with no problem. At first, it was kind of difficult to get my manager, my bosses to accept me denying these sales and everything, but I spoke with Jamie. She was great. She helped me organize prayer times. She helped me work with credit applications. She helped me work with like the pork and the alcohol. And her basic verdict on it was, since you work back in electronics, it's no problem. If you were a cashier up front, we'd have issues. But since you're back here in electronics, you can have somebody else take care of you because there's going to be somebody else around you and the clients aren't piling up. There's not 100 people trying to get in line. So it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it.
As a colleague, he's really, really good at what he does. He's great with customers, knows what he's talking about. Definitely gets us a lot of sales, especially on bigger items. If his hours weren't limited, I'd definitely ask if he could be department manager, but since he has school to focus on, that's not really an option right now.
He's a hard worker. He's fun to work with. He's like a brother to me. He's always there when I need help, especially like with technical, because I work in electronics, technical questions. He's always there to help me out, and he's just very helpful and very kind.
I knew Jared before he was a Muslim, and after he became one, he was the same person. He didn't change personality or anything like that. He was still a good-hearted man, and he just incorporated all of the stuff that Islam and the religion requires into his daily life. And it's made him a better person, but he was a good person before too.
It's not really a big difference between him and anyone else being a Muslim as far as work goes. It just means that on his breaks he uses it for prayer time instead of, say, messing around like I would. I just see him in the back a lot, using his prayer rug and just being him. There's not too much of a difference since he converted over.
All of us at Walmart are entitled to a 15-minute break. So I usually just use those breaks to pray. And there are some times when I have weird shifts and there's like 3 prayers and usually during the winter I have a hard time trying to get all the prayers in. But during the summer like now, it's easy for me to get all my prayers in, get them done during a break with no problem. I just make sure it's kind of dead out with enough associates to cover, and I say, hey guys, I'm gonna go pray. I'll be back in 10 minutes. And I don't even take the full 15, just in case somebody wants to get mad at me for going and praying. So if I have to make wudu, I go into the bathroom, I make wudu. After I'm done, I go and I pray. And I pulled up my prayer rug, put it back in my locker, and go back out to the sales floor, put my name badge back on, and usually there's no issues, ever.
He always makes sure we don't need to go do anything. If there's a lot of customers around and they need help, he'll put it off if he has to. He's been very, very courteous about when he has to go and pray.
My immediate colleagues back in electronics have no problem with me praying. They understand exactly what I'm doing. They understand fully my intention. They know exactly what I'm doing. The other associates that work back there, the other employees, like from automotive or sporting goods or other cashiers, different departments, they look at me with a strange eye, but I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing it for a year and a half now. And they just look at me like it's just Jared going back there to pray. He's our Muslim guy. And it was at first a little weird. People would give me like the weird eye, like, what's he doing? He's getting down on his forehead. Nowadays, it doesn't matter. I'm Jared. I'm still the same associate I've always been. And I'm just going back there to pray, and they know that.
Not much has changed except for now he has prayer times as well. That, and he seems a lot calmer, to tell you the truth.
I get into a lot of situations with, Christians, like, for example, Courtney, who works with me, and she's convinced. She's a practicing Lutheran. She goes to church every Sunday, and we have good conversations.
Jared has never pushed me to convert. We do have discussions where we discuss each other's religion, and I find them very, very helpful. Like, I like to talk about it. I'm a person who likes to have discussions, and we'll compare our two religions and our two beliefs, but he has never been pushy and he's never tried to make me convert. So it's like the whole Old Testament and the Bible.
Almost. I mean, you can find, like for example, Jonah. In the Qur'an, his name is Yunus. One of my best friends, a CSM up front for Walmart. He is an ardent Christian. Like, the guy takes work off to go to pray on Sundays. He says he absolutely refuses to work on Sundays. One of the only men I've ever met that's like, no, I go to church on Sundays, don't schedule anything with me, don't do anything. And him and I get along great. He basically says, this is what the Old Testament says, and I'm like, well, this is what the Quran says. And sometimes we butt heads a little bit because obviously they're two totally different faiths that are from the same God, but have branched in different directions. Usually we just end up agreeing that being a good human being, believing in a single deity above you, believing in submission, that's the main point. The idea is not that you are this or that. The idea is that you are a true servant to God and that you are not better than Him, you are not above Him, you are merely His child. It's been really hard to handle all the problems after becoming a Muslim. I've made a lot of sacrifices. After becoming a Muslim, I've learned to basically understand that the things that I'm sacrificing, the things that I'm giving up, are going to be worth it in the end. Inshallah, I want my family to see that I've become a better person, but I don't want to force it on them. I want to be a good Muslim, so I don't consume interest. I don't have a girlfriend. I haven't had a girlfriend for, since before I became a Muslim, and I don't intend to. And I haven't kissed a girl since I became a Muslim. I haven't done any. It's something that I've tried to every single day. I pray 5 times a day, sometimes more. I try and prevent lies from coming out of my mouth. I try and ensure that everything I'm doing is honest. I try and ensure that I'm being the best Muslim that I can. It's a sacrifice that in my mind has made it worth every minute, because when I can stop and pray, it gives me a chance to reflect and say, you know what, I will be rewarded one day, inshallah, for what I've suffered through, for what I've sacrificed, for what I've given up. And Islam means so much more to me because of that.
He's not just doing whatever entertains him at the moment. He's not just kind of going around being a free spirit as much as he's not as selfish as he used to be. He thinks more about other people, and I think that's a good thing.
Being a Muslim and being an American at the same time, I am blending both cultures. I am an American. I will always be an American, but I'm a Muslim, and I will always be a Muslim. It's almost like living between two worlds, because I am an American, but on the same hand, I'm not an Arab. I'm not, a Pakistani. I'm not a Palestinian. So I don't do all the things that these cultures do. I'm still an American. I come home at night after work. Usually, I'll pray, then I'll play video games, or I'll read a book, or I'll do something that other normal Americans do also. So I have the same types of pastimes that Americans do, but I have the morals that a Muslim does.
All of our life together, we've played video games. That's been a huge part of our connection, and so that hasn't changed in the slightest. That's still something that's strong, and that his religion hasn't changed, and so I can appreciate that. The
most difficult thing for an American Muslim to do living in this country is to understand that not everyone else is Muslims. Not everybody adheres to the tenets of Islam in the same way that Muslims do. And it's been very difficult to adjust to thinking, you know what, I do live in a Christian country and I have to accept that and live under the Sharia in my own home and live under my own Islamic morals when I can, where I can, in every opportunity that I can, be it at work, be it at my friend's house, be it at home. I am still underneath the Sharia law, whether I'm under the Christian doctrine or not.
I've never been negative as far as the Islam religion has gone, but I think it has given me a more positive aspect of it. I think I love America for this reason, that he can be Islam and I can be Christian, and it doesn't matter. We're in the same family, it could be different religions. The only thing that I've never liked about it is that sometimes it seems like he's built these new prejudices now. As becoming a Muslim, he starts to feel different ways about like the Iraq situation right now. He's starting to get a bit of a negative feeling towards America, which is fine. Tons of Americans themselves hate what we're doing across the nation. I just want him to go into that thinking clearly from his own standpoint and not from what he's heard from others, and use that as his own basis just because he is a Muslim now. I don't think it's making him less American loving. I fear that could be a potential thing.
If I would have known that this is the path I would have taken 20 years ago when I was just a child, I gladly would have become a Muslim when I was just a child. Because this life that I now live is greater than anything I could have imagined. I have true purpose, which I never had before. I've got a true reason to live. I worship God every day. He's on my mind every day, which is something I lacked before. I lacked complete direction before. There is no doubt in my mind that I made the right choice to become a Muslim. There are things I miss, certainly, but it's the sacrifices that make it all worth it. And inshallah, it'll be much better in the next life. This is the life I've chosen, and given the same choices again, I gladly would have made them over and over again. This religion is the greatest gift to mankind. You will become the most blessed person that you can ever imagine. This religion is a guidance for you. This religion is a way of life. It supersedes all things. It brings out the best in people. It is a bond that you have that ignores nationalities, that ignores skin color, that ignores gender. It ignores all things. Instead, you become a servant to God, and all around you are other servants to God, who are your brothers and sisters.
I'd like to tell him I love him. He's a good kid. I feel like he's made a great life choice if he's going to carry it and be strong with it. I love my little brother.
I think that once all of the conflict between the United States and the countries that it fights with, as soon as these conflicts die down, people will start to see Islam for what it really is. People will say, you know what, maybe Fox wasn't right.